Welcome back to my shop. This is Bone Cutting 101. Our goal is to make a bone turning that is this, like this right here. Alright. What we have here are individual bone discs that are stacked one on top of the other. They are glued into place with epoxy, and then they're turned on either the legacy ornamental mill or on my lathe. Now, bone is very hard, very dense material. It is a very, very fine edge as far as fine details it will take. Bone does not cut well. It scrapes beautifully. So if you use a scraper on a lathe, it works out really nice. Sanding down cuts real well too. The router on the legacy ornamental mill cuts the bone like a dream. It does a very, very nice job, very well, easily. Okay, as long as you take light cuts. What we're doing is I'm buying, you get your bone, and it's a round bone. I'll do is I'll separate it. I'll cut it in half. Okay. At this point, I can either put the bone on a flat surface and drill through, but there's a lot of wasted material. So what I do is I take the bone and I flatten it out. Now, bone, I've not figured out how to flatten bone out. What I'm doing is I'm actually cutting the bone so that I can get more of a flat edge on there versus just going through and going with the the open space. Not that I can't do it, because I can cut straight down and cut it down, but all this is wasted material. If I turn the bone and cut it flat, it gives me more area, surface area, with less waste. And the waste I can use elsewhere. So what we're doing here is I've got a homemade barrel trimmer, for no other terminology. I've taken an 1.25 inch hole saw, diamond hole saw. It's diamond, impregnated diamonds right around the corner edges. What it does is it goes down and pierces into the bone, leaving me a pilot, and the router bit I put on the inside flattens the bone surface. So you can see on here that as I drill through, it cuts down and leaves a nice flat edge. Once I get a good edge, the bone, I can cut out individual discs. The discs will vary on different thicknesses depending on the quality of the cut. You can see that this one's a little bit thicker than this one, and I've got thinner and different according to the quality of bone. Now, you do get some defects. Sometimes edges don't work. Sometimes you have units that you have little cuts and scrapes and breaks in them. And other times you get ones that actually have holes in them from the bone. Okay, I can't find the one I'm looking for now. Anyways, what we're doing is I'm cutting individual pieces to make these discs. Once I get the discs made, oh, this is the one I wanted to show you. You can see that there's a whole lot of little holes right in there. So that's all from the marrow part of the bone. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. Since we're cutting on the outer, stacking these up and cutting on the outer edges like this, it may or may not show up when we're finally have the final cut. Now what we're doing is I'm taking like you do for pen making. We're going to take a brass piece of tubing and put it down the center. I'm using a 2-part epoxy, clear epoxy, and gluing the stack of bones up into a blank. Once the epoxy is dried, I'm going to then put on a pen mantle and be able to turn it just like you do any other normal turning. That's pretty much it. Again, the goal is this, to make a bone turning. Now this bone right here is not quite finished. I plan to be able to put a roped pattern or maybe even a diamond pattern in here eventually. But you can see that I've flattened it out. It's smooth, it's nice, very hard, very dense material. It's a lot of fun to work with. The last thing I want to just make a note is that all this white powder is bone fragment, for the dust from the bone. They're saying the fine powders, even it doesn't matter if you're working with wood, are not good to breathe. it's a good idea to wear a respirator mask, an air filter mask, or at least have air movement to keep the dust so you don't breathe it in. It's not healthy to breathe. But it cuts beautifully, and it's a very neat material that not a lot of people work with. You have a good night. We'll talk to you all later.